So we're moving on to part 6 of the Enterprise build, and part 6 would be the nacelle pylons. Now when I paint these, I'm still going to give them primer, coats of primer, and then I'm going to put obviously the color of the ship that I'm using on it. But I'm not going to prime the inside and paint the inside white. The nacelles aren't going to be lighted. And even as you can see, the guide doesn't have them lit, so the lighting kit does not light them. It'd be cool if they were lit because, you know, on the actual ship, while she's in flight, they are lit. But there's just no room in here to put lights. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to prime this. I'm probably going to leave them on a tree because it'd be a lot easier to do it. Trim the pieces, prime it, and paint it. Then there's really not a lot to the pylons. As you can see, the plastic clear strip goes in for where the windows are. And then the panels go on, the grid panels, and I've got the photo-etch pieces that will go in there as well that will be painted. But we'll get started. I'll prime them. Okay, it was the first coat of the paint. Prime is all set, and I'm waiting for this first coat of paint to dry. So as you can see, the saucer pylons, both halves, the top and the bottom halves, were primed. One coat of primer, and then I put 2 coats of paint on each one. So the pylons are ready to be assembled. So I'm going to go ahead and put the assembly together. The windows go on the inside, and I'm going to have to feed the wire through from the nacelle. But that being said, I got the detail work on the grids in the fronts to do. Okay, so to give you a little update of what I'm doing, the nacelle pylons, the grids, the grills that go in the fronts of them, they're plastic pieces, but I do have the photo-etch kit. So what I did was I went ahead and I cut the photo-etch pieces out, and I went ahead and I glued them to the grills. It'll be easier to paint them like this. And then once they're done, I'll trim them, and then I'll put them into the sinkholes that are on the pylons. That should look pretty cool. I put the glass into the fronts of the pylon nacelles. So once these are dry, I'll go ahead and I'll paint them, and I'll put them into the fronts, and I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so I just covered up the photo etch on the grills that go on the pylon nacelles, the nacelle pylons, and I used a little bit of nail polish for it again because I like the color and I like the way it came out. Now we're just waiting for it to dry, and hopefully it'll give it that grid look. I put one on, let me show you how it came out. Looks pretty cool. See how it has that kind of like a gritty kind of screen looking appearance. So hopefully they all come out looking that good. And when they're dry, I'll cut them, I'll trim them off, and then I'll put them in and show you guys what it looks like. Well, I installed the grills And the texture that the photo etch put on is pretty cool because it looks like it would be rough. You know, like a sandpaper gritty grill type thing. I think it came out pretty cool. It looks good. So those are all installed. And I'm ready to put the two halves together now and finish the nacelle pylons. Of course, I got to run the wires through it. You can see there's a place to put the wires, which is really, really convenient. So we'll be doing that. I'll be putting them together and showing you guys what they look like when they're done. Okay, the nacelle pylons, part 6 in the Enterprise instruction build. They're all set and they're ready for the final assembly. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to run the wires directly from the nacelles and run them through and then glue them into place. And I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. Okay, so what I went ahead and did is I put on the heavy-duty clamps. What I had to do is I had to tape the wires in place to hold them in the area that I needed them to. And once this is dry, I'll just kind of shimmy and pull it a little bit to move it up to get it into the nacelle, because you want the wires right into the little channel. Let me show you this one. You want to get the wires right in there. So I just kept them in place long enough so I could feed it through, because eventually that has to go into the nacelle, you know, and you don't want the wires bunched up. So, and you're gonna need all of the wire coming out to go to the second circuit board in the secondary hull. So these are all clamped, and once it's dry, we can put it into the nacelle, completing it. But for the most part, this nacelle pylon is finished. Okay, so I glued both of the nacelle pylons into the nacelle, and I got them clamped. The wires are running through to go to the secondary circuit board in the secondary hull. And I'm just waiting for it to dry. When it dries, I'll remove the clamps, and the nacelles and the nacelle pylons will be ready to attach to the secondary hull. And I'll show you guys what it looks like when the glue is all dry. Okay, so the clamps came off, and it's looking pretty good. The wires are they're not stuck, and the nacelles are all done. The nacelle pylons are done. You can see this one. They came out nice. I'm pleased with the way that they came out, especially the texture from the photo etch grill pieces. It's all set. You know, this model is very, very heavy, and there's going to be a lot of weight to these nacelles. So you want to make sure that it's really glued well, and that it's really clamped and really, 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 really glued. And then it's left to dry, completely dry, before removing the clamps. Because like I said, there's going to be a lot of weight to these, because these are very heavy. And especially if you're going to be wiring it to light, like I did, there's going to be extra wires, and not that much, but there's still going to be extras. And they're looking pretty beautiful. And that'll do it for the nacelle pylons. That would be step 6 of the Polar Lights Enterprise build.